Hey everybody, this is Kyle with the Brickto Security, and today we're continuing on the Hack the Box starting point series with the base box. Let's get going. Alright, I got a box up and running here. I'm going to grab our IP, hop into Kali, and we're just going to do our usual sudo nmap-sc for a default script search, and -sv to do a version search. I'm going to let that run. I'll get back to you in a second. Alright, we got the results back. It looks like we have port 22 for SSH open, as well as port 80 for a default web page. Now, I don't have any credentials of any kind. We don't really know what we're working with quite yet. So why don't we just open up the web page here and see what this is all about. There is a basic home page, cloud storage files, so storing something on their services. You can embed things, pretty neat. There's a contact us page with some of the users that goes to their links. There's some pricing, FAQs, testimonials, all good things. There's the contact us page where we can input some of our information, which all this might be stuff that we might want to capture in Burp because we might actually want to be using this later. So I'm going to open up Burp real quick. All right, I got Burp up and running. I want to have all of our traffic be sent to Burp. Let me move my camera real quick and I will show you that within Foxy Proxy, I'm going to turn that on and send all of our traffic to Burp. Now, why don't I just go ahead and reload this web page, make sure we're going into Burp, target showing that we are getting traffic there. I'm actually going to input our URL within the scope, and then I'm going to go back into our proxy, HTTP history. I'm going to show all and then show only our in-scope items. And there is our web pages. Let's filter to our newest first. And there's our basic home page. All right, that works. Now going back into our web page, why don't we just do kind of a basic, let's not actually send that to hey@gmail. Let's just make it a random email there. We don't actually want hey to get anything. And let's send our message. There was an error, so we're not going to be able to send anything for the contact page. Not a problem. Let's go and let me show you once again. Up here there is a login page. I'm going to click on the login and we are presented with a login/login.php. Again, I'm going to do kind of the same thing. Let's just do hey and hey, and wrong username and password. Dang, looks like hey didn't quite make an account yet. But going into Burp, we do have all of that history. There's that contact.php. We did get a 200 out of that, so it might be something that we're looking for down the line. There's our login page, and there is our requests, our post requests, with the username and password. Again, just hey and hey. I'm actually going to send that to Repeater because I'm going to use that one in the future. But since we do know that this page is running PHP, why don't we start another tab? I'm going to open up a new page, and why don't we run gobuster to try and grab all the different PHP pages. Maybe there's some hidden directory that might actually work for us in our favor. The command for that is going to be gobuster dir -u, put in our IP address. We are going to do the -x, and we're going to look for all extensions with the PHP, and then we're going to do -w and then find a word list that works for us. Why don't we do the derb word list, and how about the big.txt. I'm just gonna let this run in the background, and who knows, maybe we'll find something that is worth for us. I'm back in our web page. Why don't we go ahead and see if maybe there's something going on. I notice on top of this web search, there's another slash, so another directory of login. Why don't we go look just at that page, and there's an index within our login directory that has a config login.php, which is the page we were just on, and then a login.php.swp for a swap file. What a swap file does is it'll actually store temporary information onto a virtual disk. So you don't actually have to allocate all of your resources. It'll kind of do some of the heavy work for you. But I might actually be curious to see what is actually on this. So I'm going to click the config.php. And there's nothing really on this page. It just looks like an empty line, so we might not actually have permissions to open that, but there's the login.php.swp and it'll download for us. Why don't we go back into our terminal and take a look at that. Now our gobuster finished. I'm going to go look at that in a second, but let's check out that page we were looking at. So cat downloads, and that was login.php.swp. Press enter, and there's a whole bunch of unreadable text. Again, it's the PHP page, so a lot of it's going to be kind of pertained towards the machine. We can make this a little bit prettier if we just do strings and then downloads login.php, and that looks a lot prettier for us, something that we can actually read. Why don't we scroll on this and see if there's anything that might help us out. Again, we're looking for the username, the password. There's a CSS to make the page look all pretty. And here's kind of the engine that's running the rest of the page. We're looking for a particular header. The location within that is going to be /upload.php, sessions within the user ID. And then we use the strcmp function to process our password to check to see if it does actually equate to a working password. What's interesting for us is there's actually only a double equal sign, which is interesting because for PHP, usually when you want something to indefinitely say this equals another thing, you have to use 3 equal signs. Now I got a web page for you here. I'm going to open up Firefox and paste this in. There's something within OWASP that talks about magic tricks using type juggling, which is what we're going to be doing here, where we're going to try to say we have a true statement for these strings by giving it a null value. This is what I'm talking about here. When comparing a string to a number, PHP will attempt to convert the string to a number, then perform a numeric comparison. So as long as within our string we have a true statement somewhere, we will ring as true. See, as this one has ABC, but the integer does not equal 0. But we comment out that it's a not statement, then we can kind of get true. Again, we'll go through the rest of this document. You can read up on this as you go. This is going to be good for us because what we're going to try to do is change and say that within a specific array, there is a true statement within this parameter. The way this works is by changing the string value to something numeric. As long as we have a true statement somewhere within there, meaning that this has a value, it'll ring back as true for the array statement. Now you remember that page that I sent over to repeater. Let's go back in and look at that. I can send and we'll still get this 200. Somewhere down here it'll say that this is incorrect login. I got another page I want you to take a look at. I'll paste this in the description as well. This is a write-up done by cybernetgen.com where we talk about an authentication bypass using PHP type juggling. Scrolling down on this page, we have all those true statements that we were talking about. And here is the normal way that it'll process a password. But what will happen if we submit an array of posting a password with the password and then give it the boxes to kind of give it an array statement and then send it? And this will actually process the null value that we're looking for, which null to 0 is still going to be a true statement. I'll let you read up on the rest of that, but let's go back in and all we have to do is change our parameter to username and then give it the array boxes. We can equal it to absolutely anything, and we're going to do the same for the password and then resend our request. Pressing send, and then it gives us a whole different page from what it looks like. Why don't we go ahead and we will show our response in browser. Let's copy. I'm going to open up another page just to keep that one open in case we need to go back and reference it. And the page that it loads up for us is actually a login via admin file with something to upload to the base server. What I'm going to do now is actually try to upload some kind of file, which for us, we know that this is running PHP. Why don't we go ahead and try to upload some kind of PHP file? Something that I like to use all the time is going to be the payloads all the things. I have that saved in user, share, scroll down to wordless. Payloads all the things, scroll down, we are going to be looking for upload and secure files, extension PHP, and our shell.php. And let me move my camera and you will see that your file has been uploaded successfully, which is good news for us. Why don't we go ahead and take a look and see what that file actually is. If I just cat out user, share, wordless, and that was payloads all the things, and then upload and secure files, extension PHP, and it was shell.php. And what this is just a simple PHP script. It's going to echo shell, and then it's going to look for a specific command. All right, now that we have actually uploaded this file, the question is, where is it on the web page? Let's go back and take a look at our gobuster enumeration. We weren't able to get any access to the HTA access and password, which is fine, but there is a /_uploaded page. Why don't we go take a look at that? I'm just going to copy that page over. Let's go back in. Again, I'm going to keep that page open and let's look at the _uploaded, and there is our shell.php. Awesome news for us. Very simply, if I click on shell.php, it's going to load a page that just says shell. Now, if you remember, looking back at our command, we need to do something with the get command and then add our command at the end of the statements. So now that we have the page opened, all you need to do is add a question mark, cmd equals, and then whatever your command is going to be. Let's just do who am I? Press enter, and it gives us our shell www-data as our who am I. Going back into Burp Suite here, if I go look at our HTTP history, there's our command of who am I. Let's send that to repeater, and we're going to be working off of this page now. We can send this back into requests, and there is our response of shell www-data. It's great. We know we can execute commands. Why don't we go ahead and try to get a reverse shell off of this? So what I need to do now is actually paste in a web reverse shell. We're going to do the /bin/bash-c and the normal reverse shell scripting. We're going to change our IP address. So let's go back in. I'm going to open another tab. Let's do ifconfig, and we're going to use the ton0 IP. Paste that into burp, and then we need to change the listening port. Now remember, this is going over the web, so we're going to do port 443 to keep it with encrypted traffic. And now you can see how this part is red and the rest of this is black. That's because the URL page is not actually going to recognize this as an entire string for our command parameter. So what you're going to do is highlight this entire string, press Control U, and that will encode everything for URL. What we need to do next is make sure that we have a netcat listener that's ready to receive. So netcat tag nlvp, we're listening over port 443, press enter. Now all I need to do is go back into our burp request, press send, and we can see that we have no response, which means it's hanging. Going back over to our terminal, here we are now as www-data on our web page. We are still within the _uploaded. Now, if we remember, going back, taking a look at our swap file that we have, looking at our function, what it's looking at is to check to see if we have that correct username and password on the config.php. So let's go to our reverse shell. Let's cd // over into the login folder, ls. There is all of our pages. Let's cat out our config.php, and there, if we're looking for, is going to be our username as admin, and our password has this is a good password. Now, a lot of times with administrators is what they'll do is actually reuse passwords, because oftentimes they're long strings and they want to make sure they actually remember what they're doing. So let's cd into /home and let's see who all has access on this machine. It looks like we have John. If I do su and then John, it's going to ask for a password. No, it's not. It's going to say we must be running this from a terminal. No problem for us. Why don't we go check to see if John has SSH access? I'm going to leave this tab open and I'm going to do SSH and we're going to do John at, and let's go grab our box IP, paste that in, press enter. It's say, do you want to continue connecting? Press yes. It's going to ask for the password. Password was this is a good password. Paste that back in and we are now in as John. To get the user flag ls, there is our user.txt, cat it out, and we now have our user flag. Great for us. Why don't we see what John can actually run? If we do sudo tag l, we'll have to paste John's password back in. And this is going to check what John is sudo on, if he can run any commands or anything within sudo. And we can see that within the user bin, he can run the find command as root. Well, now that we know that there is something within bin that John can run, why don't we go to GTFO bins? This is a website that is great if you want to reference back any kind of script to escalate your privileges. We're going to search the binary for find, and there is something that we can do. The shell command, it can be used to break out from restricted environments by spawning an interactive system shell. All right, let's go ahead and copy this over. And as John, we're going to find the .-exec is what's actually running the command. And we're going to look for bin and spawn a shell. It'll essentially quit out of that function with the escape character. Press enter. And we now have an interactive shell. Good for us. Who am I? And we're still John. Okay, so exit. Let's run that command again. But since we know that John can actually run this as sudo, let's put sudo in front of this. And hopefully now, since we're running this command as sudo, this will now give us a shell as sudo. Type who am I? Here we are as root. Awesome. In order to go get your flag, you're going to do cat. That's going to be in the root. And then root.txt. And there is your root flag. Now let's go back in and answer the rest of these Hack the Box questions. What two TCP ports are open on the remote host? That was 22 and 80. What is the relative path on the web server for the login page? That was login/login.php. How many files are present in the login directory? There were 3 of them. What is the file extension of a swap file? That is .swp. Which PHP function is being used in the backend code to compare the user submitted username and password to the valid username and password? That was the strcmp. In which directory are the uploaded files stored? They were _uploaded. Which user exists on the remote host with a home directory? That was John. What is the password for the user present on the system? This is a good password. What is the full path to the command that the user John can run as user root on the remote host? That was user bin and find. What action can the find command use to execute commands? That was exec. And then submit our user flag and our root flag, and that will have completed the base box. And that's it. We're done. We have completed the Hack the Box Starting Point series. I hope you continue on your journey learning with us. I'll see you in the next one.